Hey, I'm here with Frank. We're just taking off. We had a little lunch here and we're on our way back to my mom's house that I'm working on trying to sell while the real estate market's holding reasonably well. Especially where we're at, it's not too bad.
But it's getting bad, Ron.
Well, it is, and the other sector is going to be the commercial sector next, and the bad thing about that is, you know, you've not only got the real estate portion of that going down and businesses having to close, but you've got people that work for those businesses and they're also paying mortgages, so it's kind of a double whammy when that happens, and that shoe's about to drop. I think we'll see that come into play in the next 6-8 months maybe.
And then we have some people that have prophetic views like you did when you left California. You
well,
got out there at the right time, didn't you?
Yeah, I just heard my house, which I did real well on, is about half of what I sold it for.
That's unreal.
So that, you know, just thank God I was able to get out and get back here and get into something where, you know, we're just trying to minimize our bills right now. I haven't even decided what I'm going to do. I'm doing a little substitute teaching. I'm going to go get my certificate to start teaching. And then continue to work on the alternative energy stuff because, you know, one of the senators from this state has said that
you was telling me about that.
Yeah, he thinks America should have a Manhattan Project
Which is a great
type
idea.
of effort toward this alternative energy solution. And I think he's right because there's, you know how many incredible people there are out there that really just need a foothold, just need a little money maybe up front and work in the garage and stuff toward solving some of these problems.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the way it's been in this country. I think in the 20th century particularly, you find most of the inventions were done by people in their own garages, just working with a little bit of money, had a lot of time on their hands in some cases, working in the middle of the night, and they come up with some great ideas. So,
but you know, if you follow the history of that Manhattan Project, Ron, that was a phenomenal thing that we did back in the 40s. And
well,
if we did the same thing with energy, I mean, it would just be almost unbelievable what they could do if they put that same effort that they put into the Manhattan Project.
Well, the ingenuity and the motivation that particularly Americans seem to have, I think we could do almost anything we wanted to.
That's exactly right.
I mean,
that's one of our pluses.
Well, when John Kennedy went, you know, stood up before everybody and said, we're going to put a man on the moon before the end of the decade, everybody's jaw just dropped, but after the initial shock of that, we just rolled up our sleeves, got to work and did it.
Exactly.
So I think maybe somebody needs to just stand up and say that. Maybe that's the impetus we need to move forward. Somebody just stand up and say, hey, here's what we're going to do.
Well,
we're going to be totally energy independent as far as foreign oil in 20 years. I don't know how difficult it is. I don't imagine it could be much more difficult than landing on the moon, putting a man on the moon, because we had to create things that weren't even thought of to put a man on the moon. Well, the great thing about American ingenuity is that we are free enough, and that means the government's not looking over your shoulder, breathing down your neck, although I certainly hope it doesn't come to the point where no matter how much money the government gives you, they have to control every aspect of what you're doing. That's not good either. But if you just give somebody with a few restrictions a little bit of money and say, okay, here's what we need to do, go for it. Lamar Alexander, who's now the senator from Tennessee, is the one who is, and I thought it was going to be today around noon. He was going to make an announcement about the possibility of starting a Manhattan-type project to find out if we can't get a handle on some alternative energy technologies that'll work.
You mentioned it when I picked you up, and that, I mean, I think that is an absolutely fantastic idea.
Well, it's my idea. He stole it. I had that idea 5 years ago. I bet he won't give me any credit for it, though. Anyway. No, I mean, it's a tremendous idea, and it's one that's going to work. Well, I got to wait out this thing with the real estate, Frank, and with the economy, because I just think it's going to get a lot worse. We're leveraged on our credit cards to the max, and, you know, I don't know how many people are going to be seeing this thing, but, you know, you got to eliminate that credit card debt. You got to get those percentages down. You know, the interest rates on some of those are 20-21%. You got to get that down somehow, and you got to just kind of gird your loins, as they say, and wait this thing out. I mean,
like the Romans.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. No, I'm just saying we need to really take a good hard look at what China's going to be, what India's going to be, and what Russia and Pakistan even are going to be with respect to our economy, because we're going to be seriously affected. The euro is just beating us to death. China's got $3 trillion in American dollars, And if for some strange fluke they decided they want to switch to euros tomorrow, although they can't right now, we're a huge market for them. But guess what? When India becomes part of their market, when Russia becomes part of their market, when we become just another market to those people, I think that's when you're going to see some serious repercussions and ramifications economically in this country. Now the thing about it, Frank, and we can't do anything about it. We can sit here and talk about it, we can worry about it, but what we can do is proactively look through our financial business and try to eliminate. You know, I said this 2 years ago. I said, I'm not going to worry about this economy until Starbucks starts laying off people and stops building stores. And guess what? That's happening.
Really?
Absolutely, because that is completely and totally discretionary spending. If you told me 20 years ago I'd be spending $3.50 for a cup of coffee, I would have laughed your socks off.
Well, you know, I'll tell you a little story. When Pat and I lived in California, we went to Grumman's Chinese
I'm going to
Theater.
turn this over here to you because I'm getting tired of looking at myself.
We went to Grumman's Chinese Theater, and so we were sitting there, and she said, I'd like a Coke. And I said, well, I'll go up and get us a Coke. And I went up there and got a Coke, and I came back, and I said, you won't believe what I paid for this Coke. And she said, what? I said, 25 cents. But that's when you could buy a bottle of Coke for 5 cents.
Right, but I mean, in L.A., I was probably buying 3 or 4 cups of coffee a day at $3 a pop.
Right, at Starbucks.
At Starbucks.
Yeah.
And out there was a coffee bean and tea leaf, which was kind of the same thing. But if you look at spending that kind of money on coffee just to have, you know, a little buzz going all day, it didn't make any sense. But that's coming to a screeching halt. And well, you were talking about tourism. You know, Frank, this summer it's already been decided that very few people are going to travel more than a few hundred miles from the place where they live.
Yeah, but most of them live here now. They came down here.
Well, no, that's your perception of it. The real perception of it is if you get on the freeway about the end of this month, the end of May, and start looking at the number of boats coming into this area, it'd be a huge amount of people.
Yeah,
those people are not going to come.
You're right.
Now, the ones that did that, decided they wanted to live here, they're going to live here now, but guess what? All their retirement, their stocks, and all their stuff that they have their investments in are going to be diminished too. So instead of coming out and doing all the things that they've been doing, eating out at restaurants and stuff, they're going to hunker down too. Well, if you look at whenever that survey was done and you figure out how many X amount of cars were going down a certain length of highway per hour or however they do it, if you did that today, I guarantee it'll be less. And it'll be less for a whole bunch of reasons, but one of those reasons will be that gas is more expensive. They're not going to be going up and down the highway as much just to go to the store or whatever. People are going to seriously start looking at their traveling habits. Well, we know the thing that I found out about economics, Frank, it's very personal. And it's very reasonable, and it's a very well thought out plan on a one-to-one basis. And all that the aggregate economy is people looking at those habits of all those individuals over time. And when it comes down to that, we're all pretty much alike. I don't care what we look like or where we're from or who your daddy is or how much money you have. We all want to keep as much money as we can in our pocket.
Yeah, you're right.
And when we get a little bit psychologically, you know, rattled because we hear that oil's going to $4 or $5, we're going to put a screeching halt to buying that $4 or $5 cup of coffee or whatever it is. I mean, some of those high-end coffees are literally $4.50, $5 a pop.
Right.
And when you put a screeching halt to that, you don't want to go out to the movies 2 or 3 times. You'll sit home and watch, just watch regular TV. Maybe cut back on going out 2 or 3 times a week, or how many ever times you go to it, and decide that you want to have, you know, dinner at home with the family, which might be a good thing. And when you add all that up in the aggregate, I mean, that's happening to households all over the world, basically. You're making those choices dependent upon how much money you have. And when you see that in the aggregate, everything fluctuates up and down. And unfortunately, the government manipulates those statistics to the point where they don't want anybody to know what's really going on. Because I guarantee you, we've been in a recession for several months.
Exactly.
Several months. And they told us last month that, look, if you eliminate inflation, we're growing at 0.2%. That's about all for me, Frank. I'm tired of flapping my trap. How about you?
Well, I'm just listening.
All right, buddy. Well, I'm out of here. We're back at Mom's, and I got to get busy again hammering nails. So we'll talk to you later.
See you later. Bye.